Ich hatte gerade ein ganz tolles Interview mit dem Gründer von Option Omega gehabt. Wenn dich das und mehr interessiert, dann bleib dran. Herzlich willkommen bei Options for Winners. Mein Name ist Thorsten Ebert und ich habe es mir zur Aufgabe gemacht, den Optionshandel salonfähig zu machen. Für meine Backtests benutze ich mitunter das Tool von Option Omega, ein wirklich klasse webbasiertes Tool, und das hat wirklich eine Fülle an Funktionen, die sehr, sehr hilfreich sind, und diese werden heute auch noch persönlich von dem Gründer von Option Omega, von Troy, uns vorgestellt. Wenn dich das und mehr interessiert, dann bleib dran. Okay, Troy, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate getting to be with you today.
Maybe would it be okay for you if you introduce yourself in 2-3 sentences?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Troy, and I'm one of the co-founders of Option Omega. We launched this backtesting tool this year, and it's been doing really well, growing a lot, and I've had a lot of fun talking to option traders in the last couple of months, learning from them, and hopefully them learning some things through testing.
Now, I've been using Option Omega for weeks, and I'm really, really happy. And this was the reason why I contacted you, and I asked you if you could shoot a video together with me. And therefore, I'm really, really thankful that you also show Option Omega to the German-speaking community. So you are from the USA, and we see the weather is quite nice. And
it's a pleasure.
Perfect.
It's a pleasure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, let's get started and go into more details. Maybe you show us Option Omega. No?
Sure. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep. Okie dokie. The first thing, what I see is that you can save the backtests. So this is okay.
Yep. These are some saved back tests. And basically you can see them as a card or a table. A card gives you a little bit more detail. Table gives you a lot more detail just in a granular form. And the data is 1 minute. So all of our tests use 1 minute data. And if you click on new back test, you can see the tickers we have. We have SPX, SPY, IWM, and QQQ.
One question before, sorry for interrupting you. One question before, it's online. Yeah, it's not a tool I need to download. It's online.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, it's on
web-based.
It's web-based. Yeah, 100%. Yep. So anyone across the world can just go to Option Omega and find it. Yeah, and yeah, we use the indexes, the major 4 American indexes, and we go back to 2013. So you can test 1 minute data up to January of 2013. And we also have some kind of easy ways to look at specific dates. So a lot of people want to back test the COVID crash. And so we allow you to do that.
But maybe it's useful. We don't know what will happen in the near future.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And so what we do is, let me click another one real quick. I'll just show you a test. So this is a 7-day iron condor. Mm-hmm. And what we'll do, I thought it'd be helpful just to go through and see how I set this up, and we can talk through it. So this is year to date. And our data goes back to yesterday, basically. So we get a nightly feed. And so you'll be able to back test today's action tomorrow, if that makes sense. And so we have a list of common strategies that you can use. You can click through these. These are just common things that people use, or you can build your own just by clicking an add button. There'll be an add button here if you don't. And this looks pretty complicated, but once you get it, we think it's the easiest and the most efficient way to build out these strategies. And what you do is you go through the line. You can sell, buy, a call, or a put. In this case, we're selling a put, one of them that's a delta. And that's important. I can show you the difference here in a second. but this is a 25 delta put with 7 days to expiration. And then we're doing something crazy. We're linking the leg. So when you click this button here, I got rid of it there. If you click the link button, you can then link this leg to the parent. And that is really helpful when you want to sell a specific delta and you want to buy the strike 10 points out or 15 points out. You want it to be linked to the parent strike. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, perfect. Maybe one, two sentences in German. Hier sehen wir jetzt die Möglichkeit bei Option Omega, wenn wir jetzt Optionen hier eröffnen, dass wir die auch miteinander verbinden können, also linken. Das heißt, hier haben wir die Möglichkeit, dass wir Optionen, wie es da steht, Sell Put, also Put-Option verkaufen und darunter können wir dann die gekaufte Put-Option mit der darüber liegenden verkauften Put-Option verlinken. Das gleiche da unten auch und das macht das natürlich auch um einiges einfacher. Da oben über den Datum, da stand ja auch gerade die Möglichkeit, man kann auch bestimmte Zeiträume wählen und da war jetzt beispielsweise auch die Möglichkeit, auf Covid-Crash zu gehen. Ja, das ist natürlich ganz, ganz hilfreich, dass man sich diese Situation hier und da nochmal in Erinnerung ruft, weil wir wissen ja nicht, was jetzt bald kommt. Das kann natürlich sein und dann kann man sich natürlich das nochmal sozusagen backtesten. Thank you, Troy.
Perfect, yeah. And so you can set the days to expiration. You could obviously do different expirations, which we'll look at here in a second if you wanted to do a calendar or something like that. But otherwise, that's how you set up the trade. And obviously, that means you can set anything up you want, up to 4 legs, to test. And if you click this button, use the Zach DTE, what that means is we'll only open trades when these days to expiration are available. So, for instance,
okay, I understand. So in SPX, it's daily available, yeah. So
that's right.
But anyhow, if you take another one who's only 3 times per week, yeah, then you would only get this DTE which you exactly want to have. Yeah?
That's exactly right.
Okay, das heißt also auf gut Deutsch heißt das von wegen, hier kann man noch anklicken, dass man wirklich genau dieses Days to Expiration, diese Laufzeit haben möchte, die man da anklickt, dass jetzt nicht der Algorithmus jetzt den nächstbesten sucht, sondern der nimmt definitiv dann diesen DTE. Ja, okay.
Thank you. And then what we have here is an allocation section. And this is useful because what you can do is you can do a couple different things. You can be very theoretical to say, I want to start with a specific amount of money and see what would happen with 100% allocation. You could also do something that's mirroring close. Say you have 100,000 in your account. You could say, well, I want to test a 10% allocation per trade. And what that means is, in this case, this is selling premium. So we're going to sell as much premium as we can from our margin requirements that fill us up to 10%. For the sake of the test, sometimes I like to do this, start with a small account, and then think of these terms as buckets. And so what you can also do is, let's say you were doing this and it was say you're putting a trade on for 60 days or a longer term trade, and you're doing it every day or every other day or something like that. You might only want to have 10 of them on your book per cycle. So what you could say is well, I want to only have a max of 10 of these trades on. And if you do that, you could then say, so on the 11th day or whatever, I want to prune the oldest one. And all that means is we will close out the oldest test, the oldest trade before putting a new one on, to try to emulate what a lot of people do with selling daily premium and things like that.
Oh. Ja, this is very, very detailed. Also hier hat man auch noch die Möglichkeit, seine Margen-Auslastung sozusagen mit anzugeben, also mit wie viel Geld man da reingeht, Starting Funds, und dann hier die Margin Allocation. Das heißt, wie viel soll davon auch benutzt werden? Das ist wirklich gut, ja.
Thank you. And the max contracts per trade is good if you want to, 2 things. If you want to test it, you could just put 1, and that kind of gives you some specific numbers without having to worry about any allocation. I just want to look at what this would have done with 1 contract through time. Or another thing is if you find a test that does really, really well, just because the power of compounding, eventually it'll get to like 4 million contracts, right? And so I always like to try to say, no matter how big it gets, let's max it out at 100. We'll only ever put 100 of these on at any given time. And depending on what you're trading, obviously SPX and SPY and everything is very liquid, but there is a cap. You're not going to put 50,000 contracts on every trade of condors. Your liquidity would be very poor in that case. So it's a way to test that.
And it's quite helpful. For example, if you take a longer period for the back test, the underlying prices, they changed. So the premium for one sold option on SPX was 5 years ago much lower than now. So that you can, if you take the same margin requirement, you will have now maybe less trades than 5 years before, 5 years ago.
Very much so, yeah. The entry conditions, because we use 1 minute data, you can test different times of the day for your strategy, which becomes very useful. And so you can do 9:32 a.m. to 3:59 p.m. And this is Eastern Standard Time, market time. The reason we don't let you trade, 4 o'clock or 9:31 a.m. is liquidity gets very, very poor during those times. And we want to be as accurate as possible. So we just don't allow people to test that just because it would be unrealistic.
But anyhow, it's quite interesting. Hier hat man die Möglichkeit, die Zeit wirklich minutengenau einzugeben. And Troy, by the way, here you can also test the power hour. For example.
Oh, yes.
So this is quite helpful. So
certainly, yes. Well, you can also test your frequency. So you can do this every day. That assumes, obviously, just that every day. You could say, I only want to test this trade on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays, or I only want to do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or you can do monthly. You could target, for instance, if you're placing these longer dated trades around OPEX, you could, I think there's a famous in the market monthly, like a JP Morgan collar that gets placed around OPEX and things like this. Stuff like that you could test. Or what's very useful is you can also test very specific days. So for instance, if you want to test CPI dates this year, you could test that. If you want to test FOMC dates, you could do that. So that's a way to do that.
By the way, this is really, really helpful. Hier kann man sogar noch Daten ausklammern, die man vielleicht nicht traden möchte, wenn sich zum Beispiel die Fed trifft, wenn die Verbraucherpreise, CPIs, da kommuniziert wird, kann man mal testen, besonders für den einen oder anderen, der Zero DTE tradet. Ja.
Good. And you can also open through VIX environment. So you could say, I want to open this trade when the VIX is at least 20 and it's, at least 20 and it's under 30 or different things like that. So just, you could test some stuff based on the volatility environment.
But by the way, this is one I use because I have some strategies to sell option in a very, very high volatility. So this is what I also used already. Perfect.
You can also use technical indicators. So for instance, if you are used to relative strength index, you can put trades on around that. You can also you can test the simple moving averages. So you could say, I want to do this trade if it's below one of these moving averages. Or you could say, if it's above one of the moving averages. Or you could say, I want to compare the moving average. So I want to do it if this day, if the 2 day is greater than the 4 day or something like that. So there's a couple different ways that you can test these things and open them specific.
This is quite helpful because for example, bullish or bearish signals, if the 200 days moving average is over about the 50 days, Und therefore it's absolutely useful. Also hier hat man die Möglichkeit, technische Indikatoren mit rein zu benutzen. Natürlich hier auch den WIX, den Volatility Index, den nutze ich ja für manche Volatilitätsstrategien wirklich gut, ja.
You can also use gaps, which are useful. So you can say, I only want to trade this if the market has, if it's up at all. If the market opens up at all, I want to put this on. But I don't want to put it on if it's above 1% open, or vice versa. If the market's down a little bit, I want to put this on. But if the market's down 3%, I don't want to put this down. You can also use intraday movement. And just to show you that, when the trade opens, the market opens a certain percentage from the opening price to the current price. So you could say, just like the gaps, if the market has moved, a 0.5%, I want to put a trade on. If it's moved past the percent, I don't. You can test those things. Mm-hmm. We also have squeeze metrics data. And for those of you who are familiar with it, it's very useful in some environments to look at different ways the market puts together gamma. So he does two things. Squeeze metrics uses a couple different values, and they're based off dark pool printing, so what people are buying in the off market. And then he makes a basically like a VIX, the GXV, that basically accounts for a daily move, not based on volatility, but based on the gamma of the market. And you can read more about that at squeezemetrics.com, but we have that available to you if you're interested in that.
Perfect. This is what I already use. By the way, I didn't know this is Traditics. There I also take the GEX, etc. from, yeah. But
yeah,
here,
no.
yeah. Sorry?
I've heard great things about Traditics too, by the way.
Traditics. Das ist wirklich hilfreich. Hier haben wir die Gaps, die wir benutzen können. Wir haben Intraday-Bewegungen, die wir benutzen können. Und das, was der liebe Treu gerade gesagt hat mit Squeeze Matrix, das habe ich ja schon mal kurz angerissen bei Traditics. Ja.
And then we have a profit and loss section. And basically how that works is you could say, in this case, for instance, we're selling a condor, 7-day condor, and we are getting out at a 20% profit target. And there's a couple different ways we could do it. We could actually do something kind of cool that we just released, where you could take different percentages of your trade off based on certain profit targets. So you could say, for instance, at 20%, I want to close 20% of my trades, contracts, and then I want to adjust the stop. So it's kind of like a moving stop, taking profit as you go and moving your stop loss up as you go. And if you do a lot of debit spreads, I found that to be very helpful, a helpful way to get out. But that's something you can definitely play with. In a similar way, we have stop losses, and we have trailing stop losses as well. So you could say after 10%, set the stop, just, I don't want to take any off, but I want to move the stop loss up. So you could do that as well. And then we have this per leg stop loss.
So you could say, one second. Only for this section. We can shoot a further video, because this is so detailed, and you have a lot of benefit if you use these options. Ja? Also hier hat man sehr viele Möglichkeiten bei Profit and Loss. Das hat ja gerade der Treu auch vorgestellt. Man kann das wirklich in unterschiedlichster Weise ansetzen. Da werden wir uns auf jeden Fall nochmal für zusammensetzen und beschäftigen. Und das, was der Treu jetzt zeigt, das ist ganz wichtig. Stop loss per leg. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do it, but the point is we try to give you a bunch of options for testing different criteria that you would want to work through. So I'll put this back to 20, what we had it. And then your exit conditions, we have a couple different ones. So you can use an early exit. So for instance, let's say you're selling a 30-day condor. You could say, as one of your exit criteria, I want to just get out halfway through the life of the trade. So I want to get out 15 days with 15 days to expiration. Because we also have 1 minute intervals, you can pick the time. You could say, I want to get out at 3:59 that day, or 9:30, first thing in the morning that day, 15 days to expiration. You can also use the same technical indicators that we have in the entry conditions as your exit conditions. So you could say, if the RSI crosses over this threshold, I want to get out. Or if the moving average crosses this, I want to get out. You can also exit when the short leg is from the underlying. And basically what this means is, and notice I have it checked here and at 0. What that means is these shorts right here, the 25 delta put and the 30 delta call, if they get touched by the market, if the market moves to that strike, I want to exit. You could also say, if it goes over by 15 points, I want to exit.
So this would mean if the short option is 40 and you have minus 15, then you would go out of in 25 delta?
Yeah, you would go if the short, say you had a 25 delta short, if minus 15 would go, if you went past that strike 15 points, if the market moves 15 points past it, then close it out. Or if the market's approaching it, if it's within 50, if once it gets to 15 points to touching it, get out. So some different ways to test it. And you could just do it, and this is pretty, I found this to be close to real life as I've watched traders through the years. You could also just get out if it moves a bunch, if the market moves. So you could say,
why not? This is also what I showed in one of my last YouTube videos. Yeah, it's the conditional orders, where you also then have close the trade if when underlying prices move. Yeah, so this is really helpful. Huh?
Yeah,
but what I really like, and this is exit when OTM short leg is from underlying. This is really helpful, because sometimes it is you are if you, for example, have iron condor and you go out with I don't know 200% losses, but later on you are I don't want to say pissed off, but you see it was not in the money, yeah. So and no, I've losses, but why? Yeah, so this is
that's exactly right. And then this section, this miscellaneous section, it's not to be skipped over. It's what we call the Punisher section, because this is where your tests become we try to make them either very tough to make them more realistic, or we make them unrealistically tough to really show if a strategy could weather a bunch of different storms. And we do that by, first, you can use your commissions and fees. So for instance, if you're using Tastyworks or some broker, IBKR, and you know your interactive brokers, and you know what your commissions are per contract, and your commissions and fees, you could do that per contract here, and we will calculate that per contract for you. So add your commissions to it. You can also use slippage. So you could say, well, I'm doing something deep in the money, so I know it's going to kind of be illiquid 30 days out. So we could say, we're going to put 25-cent slippage on, or we're going to put 5-cent slippage, and assume that we're not going to get the mid on this. We're going to have to move it around.
This makes it really more realistic.
Yeah,
because this is a problem. If you're really out of the money options and they are more illiquid, that you need to consider these slippages.
Yeah, very rarely will you just get a perfect mid fill on your trades. Although Interactive Brokers does a pretty good job. I've heard of that. So you can also ignore trades with a wide bid ask spread. And the wide bid ask spread, I don't remember off the top of my head, but we have it formulated to where basically if we recognize that the market was very illiquid during this fill, you can ignore it. And that's useful if you want to make sure, if you're doing things that are kind of in the money, sometimes you get some weird movement. But then also it's very useful during COVID because COVID was actually the thing where if you run tests with this on during COVID, you'll see that a lot of times the market was just getting very, very illiquid and the bid and the ask was getting very wonky. And so it's a way to test that. You can also close open trades on test completion. And what that means is at the end of your run, a run is basically we go through and iterate each trade, and together that makes a test. What the close open trades does is at the end of the run, if you had tests still on, trades still on, we just close those at the end, win, lose, or draw. And so, for instance, if you had every day you put on a 90-day condor and you're running this for 30 days, we're going to just close all of those at the end of 30 days if you have that on, win, lose, or draw. So this one is good if you're really, really wanting to get theoretical. So, for instance, if you're selling a put spread and you actually got a better fill, or the price gapped up overnight, and so you it's a big winner, and you got more than what your profit target was. If you do this, we'll ignore that. We'll say, let's see what the test does if you only ever got what you wanted at your profit target from it. And so that's a way to kind of ignore overnight stuff. This one is the real killer, and it only exits trades when the max profit is hit for 2 consecutive time intervals. So the mid has to get hit twice for us to close the trade. And that really does drastically affect your trade, surprisingly so. So it just makes the test more realistic. This is for something interesting that I haven't talked about yet, but basically, use min max entry premium. What does that mean? Well, up here, we're selling a 25 delta. But what happens if we didn't want to sell a 25 delta? Let's say let's close that out. And we wanted to collect a certain amount per trade. So we're going to make a condor, but instead of deltas, we want to sell a put that costs $2, that we receive $2 for, and we want to buy the wings. Or let's say we don't want to do that, and we want to collect $2, and then we want to buy a put, and we want to pay $1. Now, what does that mean? That means we would receive $1 per contract, right? But in real life, what happens is you might get 90 cents for it. You might get $1.10 for it. And as we run through these tests, you might get $1.20. What this does is it basically says, no, I seriously only want to put this on if I receive $1. I want you to skip over the ones where I would not have received $1. And why would you do that? Well, that's just kind of trying to mirroring real life to say, in real life, would you take less than $1? You might, but you might be a stickler and say, no, I only put this on for $1. Does that make sense?
Wow. Ja, wie ihr mitkriegt, da sind so viele Details drin. Ich werde gleich aber noch mal den Treu fragen, von wegen, was er für Einstellungen für sich persönlich immer, sage ich mal, anlässt. Ja, also anklickt. Okay. Ja.
Good. Short-long ratio. It's a little confusing. It's a little complicated, but it's useful, and it's one that's easier actually just to play around with, and you'll quickly realize what it is. Use blackout days is similar to testing certain days, but the opposite. So, for instance, you say, I want to list a bunch of dates where I know through history I would not have traded this strategy. FOMC, CPI, Job Report, whatever it would be for you.
Also hier kann man wieder die Tage eintragen, an denen man nicht traden möchte, aber ich frage jetzt noch mal kurz nach, was ist denn jetzt so schön? Yeah, but what is the difference between this and the one above?
The one above is I want to trade these days. I only want to trade these days.
Okay, also der Unterschied ist, da oben, ja, da werden die Tage eingetragen, wann ich traden möchte, und hier unten trägt man halt die Tage ein, wann man nicht traden möchte. Also Blackout Days, wie der Name schon sagt, ja.
Yep. And then the final one is you could re-enter the trade on certain criteria. So you could say, if my profit target or it expired or there's an early exit or I got tested, I want to just put the exact same trade on. And think of this as like, say your put got tested on a put spread. I want to open another put spread right then, or delay it by a couple of minutes so you can test that.
Wow, this is really helpful with the Re-Entry Function. Ja, also hier hat man die Möglichkeit, also wenn jetzt beispielsweise ein Trade im Profit oder im Verlust geschlossen wurde, dass man dann direkt wieder neu einsteigen kann. But anyhow, if the new trade after the Re-Entry has the same DTE, or how does it work?
Good question. No, so think of it this way, is if you re-enter for whatever reason, what are we going to put on once it's exited? We're going to put on this again.
Okay. So if we have, for example, 130 DTE trade, it will be closed and re-entered again with 30 DTE.
That's right.
Okay. Also es wird sozusagen genau das, was man oben eingestellt hat an Trades, dann in Anführungszeichen wieder neu eröffnet. Okay.
So we'll look through some trades real quick, if it's okay. I've got a couple here.
One really important thing, Troy, is that we cannot only choose, for example, the delta. We can also say, hey, we want to, for example, open an iron condor for in total $2. So this is also possible that we have a fixed premium, right?
That's right. That's this. And then you can also do a percentage out of the money. So you can say, I want to sell something 10% or 3% out of the money. You could do it that way. Or you could do a strike offset, which means I just simply want to sell the put that's 100 points below the market. You could do that too.
By the way, today's morning here in Germany, now we have later evening now. In the morning, I read an article about 7 DTE iron condor looking each time for a distance from 125 points. So this is what you could also do here. So this
interesting.
Is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So this is a 7-day iron condor, and this is year to date. And we are selling the 25 delta, and we are buying the wing, buying the put below it, 10 points below it. So it's a tight spread. Also, we're selling the 30 delta call and buying the call 10 points out again. And because of skew in the SPX, the delta, it's actually a little bit close to delta neutral when you do a higher delta on the call. And what we're doing is we're opening the trade at 10 a.m. and we're doing it every day. And in this case, we're allocating 100% of our portfolio. But again, think of it not in terms of your entire account, but testing it with a small amount of money. So say you wanted to segment your portfolio into small buckets and then test 100% allocations. We do that just to look at compounding. The things I have on here to make it realistic is I have my commissions and fees. So $1.70 per contract on open, 70 cents on close, and required to price targets. And so it needs to be, the profit target has to be hit twice. And then we give you some interesting metrics. So we look at and we say, what was your total P&L during this trade? What was your compound annual growth rate? What is your max drawdown? What is your MAR ratio? We just launched that, and you'll have to look that up. But Rusty's ahead of me, and I can't remember the definition off the top of my head, but the MAR ratio. And then your win percentage. And this is an interesting way to look at it. We called capture rate, premium capture rate. And so what this means is how much total premium you sold during this test and how much you actually kept.
But
So,
we have in Germany such a strange tax system. This could become a big problem for
oh, really?
one of us.
That's right. All right. And then your starting capital and your ending capital. And then we give you some averages. So your average per trade, your average winner, your average loser, your max winner, your max loser. And this is very useful for testing. We tell you what was the average amount of time you were in this trade, which is very helpful. And then how many trades total and how many did you win? And we give you some graphs and some annual metrics, but then we go through a trade log. And the trade log has a bunch of different metrics you can look at. In fact, you can filter.
Oh, wait a sec. How you open it? Where?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, right here. This little cogwheel.
Hmm.
And you can put all of these on there or none of them if you want. And then you can also export this to a CSV. So if you want to do some more analysis, you can do that. And
really,
you can sort.
really helpful, because I've seen also you could show the VIX, for example. No? The VIX opened and closed. So it's also possible.
That's right. Yes.
Wow.
So you can now you'll notice here, it's not available because you didn't have any parameters that required VIX.
But if we don't record,
but if you used it,
for example, the VIX, then you would see it here.
That's right.
Okay.
So what we show you here basically is the date and time that you opened, what the underlying price was at the moment you opened, how many contracts, so in this case 10 each, and then what strikes and days to expiration you had, and then what your premium was per contract. So in this case, you're receiving roughly $5.20, or looking through it, maybe averaging out roughly $5 per spread. And then we give you the closing price when you closed it, what time you closed it, and the cost and why. In this case, because we have exit when tested, which was that 0 from the underlying, it's when the call was tested. And we'll show you what your max loss was during the life of the trade and what your max profit was. And this is very useful as you start constructing these, because you can kind of get a sense of, okay, I actually got up to 9% profit on this. I got up to 5%. So maybe you start changing the parameters and say, well, what would it look like if I took 5% profit instead of 20% profit? And so it gives you some interesting ideas. So that's one test. That's a 7-day.
Das war jetzt ein schöner Test. Da hat der Treu extra für uns jetzt so einen 7-Tage-DTE-Test mal gemacht. Und da waren ja jetzt auch ein paar Funktionen drin, die sind ganz hilfreich. Und da hat man ja gesehen, da gibt es nicht nur den Graphen, da gibt es auch diesen Trade-Log. Da ist das alles einzeln aufgestellt. Und man kann das halt auch noch nach seinem Gusto entsprechend anpassen. Und wenn man dann die Ergebnisse sieht, heißt es ja auch auf der einen Seite, wenn es gut ist, dann ist es ein guter Backtest, den ich vielleicht auch umsetzen kann. Wenn nicht, kann man natürlich Step by Step anpassen. I just said, if we see the results of the backtests, this is a good signal, maybe for doing some adjustments, so that we go not with 20% profit, closing the order, the trade. So a lot of things that are really helpful for getting a better backtest result.
Good. If you look at these two, I'll show you them, but they're interesting. This is a 30-day call spread, and this is the same exact test, but notice the difference. So $3,000 difference. And I want to show you why. So this one, the default one, is a 30-day call spread. So what are we doing? We're selling a 25 delta call daily. We're allocating 20% of our portfolio, and in this case, starting with 100,000. And our profit target is 10%, or our stop loss is 100%. Now, that's a fine test. That's good. What's interesting about this, though, is we're putting this on daily. Remember, every day we're just selling a call spread. What happens if we do the exact same test, but instead we only do this on days that open at least 0.1% down?
Wow.
What does that mean? Basically, we're only doing this on days, right here, use gaps, where we open down, and that's it. That's the only difference. And it's those small little permutations that when you test these can make a difference between a good trade and a bad trade. And we find that to be very interesting. It's a pretty big winner.
Wow. And the min gap down means that the underlying price starts with 0.1% minus.
That's right. Yeah. So it opened from yesterday's close, it opened at least 0.1% down.
And such a little thing.
Yeah. And what that does, it's interesting. When you do something like that, you're basically saying on down days, when we open down, then sell a call spread. That's all. That's the main difference. Don't do it indiscriminately. Only do it on days when we've opened down a little bit. And so that has worked pretty well this year.
So does it mean, Troy, if I would take min gap up 0.1, then I do have the same good result with a bull put spread instead of a bear call spread?
This is where it gets interesting. Let's do that. We sell a put instead of the calls, and instead of gap down, we're going to do a gap up.
Yeah.
What do you think, Thurston? I'd be interested. Do you think it'll have the same result?
I don't believe it.
Yeah. I think you might be. Oh.
But anyhow,
there we go. That we were both wrong. So that does really well, obviously, as well. And you're in it for 3 days.
The other one was below 3 days, right?
Yeah, that's right. I believe that's the case. Let's look real quick. Yeah, you get out very quickly on that one.
Wow. Yep.
So very interesting. And then the final one I will show you, just to give you an idea of what it does. Double calendars have worked very, very well in this market year to date. And what this is doing is every Monday morning at 10 a.m., we're selling a 25 delta call and put, and we're buying, that's the 0, a 7-day call and put at the same strike, which is what we call a double calendar. And our profit target is 50%. And again, opening, closing fees, and then we require 2 profit targets. This is very interesting because if you look at the starting and the ending capital, it's quite ridiculous. But if you look at the trade log, a lot of what's happening, you're in the trade on average 3 days. And because of the movement, with double calendars this year, it kind of makes sense. You're selling premium, so you have a little bit of decay in your favor, but then you're also long Vega, and you have that in your favor. So, in a bull market, these don't perform as well, but so far this year in the bear market, it has seemed to do very well.
But now, if this is a debit spread. Das ist ein Debit spread. Das ist kein Credit spread. It's a debit spread. It's clear. But same delta, short and long legs.
That's right. Same.
Here it's positive long Vega. Ja? Und das ist das, was Troy gerade gesagt hat. Im Bullenmarkt wäre es wahrscheinlich nicht so klug, im Bärenmarkt schon. But anyhow, if the volatility is now in some days really, really high, then it would not be good, I think.
That's right. In fact, this is a trade that I would not suggest for normal markets. You will have a slow bleed on Vega, and you will usually lose on this trade through time. But just to show you how double calendars work in this, I thought it'd be interesting to show that. And it kind of, in some ways, perhaps you could think of double calendars as a hedge this year. Maybe it's not your main strategy. And this is where portfolio comes in that's interesting, is we have this concept where you can combine these tests and then see what would happen if we did these together. And so, for instance, the 7-day condor, let's say we were putting 80% of our capital into that, or let's say even 90. And the double calendar, we allocated 10% of our capital. And here we start with $10,000. You can run this together and then see what 2 tests through time would look like, which we find to be very useful. And so in this case, again, we'll give you the CAGR of both of these, your max drawdown, your MAR ratio, capture rate, and then what your starting and ending capital would have been.
But this is really, really helpful. Also hier könnt ihr sogar noch Strategien kombinieren. This is really helpful if you do for the one hand side, for example, your normal trade. On the other one hand side, you take or you open a hedge trade, for example.
That's right.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so it's useful to especially test hedges, but also if you have 3 or 4 strategies that you want to see how they would do together in a portfolio for the year, you can run it that way. And we have the daily log that shows you kind of where your liquidity is at and your funds. And then we show you the strategies that are in this portfolio. And then we give you the trade log of all of those tests run together.
Wow.
So very helpful, very, I think it's useful in that regard. And people have a lot of fun with this and they spend a lot of time with it.
But this would be my next question, Troy. How many hours per day do you spend for backtesting?
My wife will be home soon, so I can't say out loud how many hours I've spent doing this.
Because this is, honestly speaking, I don't know, but I also spend a lot of time because I find each time new things, and this is really helpful. But could we go back to the settings in the new portfolio that we with the settings quite below where we could change the settings? Take the Iron Condor, for example.
Take the Condor off, you said?
That we go into the details of this again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the specific test.
That we go into it.
Yeah.
And that we go to the chair. Yes, and please scroll down. Because here, regarding all these things, they're really, really helpful. But what do you recommend? What should we put on or put off?
For the
backtesting to become more realistic, use commission and fees. Okay, understandable. But from use slippage maybe. And what is your idea here?
The big 3, if I was going to suggest trying to make it as realistic as possible, would be your commissions and fees, your slippage, and then required to profit target hits.
Okay.
Because even the required to profit target hits, let's run this again without that on. So if you remember, it's $32,999. Might get better, might get worse. It's probably going to get better. Right. So this is an allocation that, again, 100% allocation, starting with $5,000. This is where backtesting normally people accidentally lose a lot of money. This looks like a really, really big winner, right? You've done very, very well for yourself this year. But as soon as you say, for 2 time intervals, I want to have that same profit, well, suddenly the test gets very, very, very realistic to what you would be. Now, the secret is you might do better than this, especially with that other flipped off. But wouldn't it be good to be too hard on yourself during the test and be pleasantly surprised that you get some good fills in reality, you know? Much better than seeing that without that hit on and then putting too much money into this trade, expecting it to generate that type of alpha for you. So we look at it this way as this is a good way to test, what would the market actually give you out of that trade.
Perfect.
So,
next question, Troy. What is your favorite strategy?
Well, so personally speaking, I trade a lot of calendars. I do like debit spreads, and I will actually inverse it. So just that one portfolio we're looking at where you use the hedge as a calendar, I will use the calendar as the main strategy and sell premium against it as the hedge in some ways. So I kind of reverse that. I also like butterflies. I'm a big fan of butterflies. I have found butterflies to do pretty well in this environment right now. If you don't get greedy, if you get in and get out, they can handle a lot of bounces. So those are my 2 favorite.
Okay, Troy mag am liebsten Debit Spreads und Butterflies mit einer davon und Kalender-Spreads, ja. Ja, perfect. Yeah, Troy, you have not only the tool, the web-based option Omega, you have also a Discord group. If you become a member, if you subscribe option Omega, there are a lot of people they discuss. And
yes. In our Discord, can you see the Discord here?
Not really. I only see your option Omega window.
Okay, I don't know how to. I'm very bad at that. So let me
stop sharing.
Yeah, I don't.
Stop sharing, and then again maybe.
Here, let me try one more thing real quick. Let's try that. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is our Discord, and we have about 525 people in. And basically, once you are subscribed, we give you verified channels where people go in all day long and just talk strategies. And so it's been very useful. It's a learning kind of environment, and everyone, for the most part, is very, very kind because we're all trying to do this together. And so we have this, and it's been a joy to be a part of it. We also have a fun thing called a cigar lounge where I will go in and we will do videos throughout the day, usually once a day at least. And we will talk through strategies where we will share those strategies with each other and go from there. That was one thing that's pretty interesting. I didn't share this, but let me do this real quick for you. Oh, that's your screen. Sorry. Try that again. Nope, your screen again. Sorry. Now I'm completely messed up. Sorry about that. Well, I can describe it. There's a place where actually you can on a test when you save it, you can make that the link shareable, and so you can share strategies with each other that way. And anyone who is a member of Option Omega, a subscriber, can get that test and save it to their own file, basically.
Perfekt. Das, was Herr Treu gerade uns zeigen wollte und jetzt danach gesagt hat, ist, man kann seine Strategies, seine Backtests speichern und mit all jenen Teilen, die ja auch sozusagen Mitglied in diesem Option Omega Community sind. Ja, da kann man sich untereinander den Link per E-Mail, per WhatsApp, wie auch immer zusenden. Ähnlich gut wie bei optionstrat.com. Ja, optionstrat.com. It's also quite nice because there you can also share your links. Yeah.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, and then you have been the first in Germany to use Option Omega. So you're the pioneer. And so
I said to you already, Troy, now everybody is using it. And this is what I also do. Yeah? I was on the World of Trading. This is an Invest show in Frankfurt in Germany. It was there. And I told them, hey, use Option Omega. So because as mentioned, I've been using Option Omega for weeks, and I'm really, really happy. And it was helpful for me to get new ideas and to test and to test and to test. And then the test is over, and you can trade, because you have enough stuff for doing your trades. This is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, it's been helpful. It's definitely made me a better trader, and that's what we made it for. Is we started with us and we liked it, and then we opened it up to other people. So
perfect. I hope many thanks for the really, really detailed introduction. And it's to get all the information from the founder. It's very welcome. As mentioned last time, our club, we have a summer event next year, and you and your team are very, very welcome to come to Germany. This would quite interesting. We have, by the way, we have also people not from the USA, but from South Africa, also living here in Germany, and so they're not the only English-speaking guys. So therefore, it would be very, very welcome if you come to visit us here in Germany, to good old Germany. So
we're actually talking about it this week, the founders, about how to get to Berlin next year. So we're very excited.
Perfect.
Think about that.
Okay. For this, I think we are finished, but I hope we will find time for new videos, because we have so many questions, and maybe you could show us new strategies. We can discuss the new strategies. And if you have new features, for example, so this is very, very nice. And
we would love to. Thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Perfect. And enjoy your weather.
Oh, we will. Yeah, I appreciate it. Sorry for your rain, but hopefully you have sun soon.
2 days. So then I'm on holiday. Okay. Thank you, Troy, and we see you next time.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Ja, das war jetzt ein Interview mit dem lieben Troy. Er hat uns ja wirklich gezeigt, was Option Omega da alles bietet. Es wird übrigens auch nicht das letzte Video sein. Wir werden noch diverse Videos drehen. Wir gucken uns natürlich dann noch gezielt die ein oder andere Strategie ein, die wir dann vielleicht oder auch hoffentlich bald traden werden. Wenn dir das Video gefallen hat, würde es mich natürlich freuen, wenn du diesen Kanal jetzt abonnierst, mir einen Daumen hoch gibst, und wenn du dich für Option Omega interessierst, unten gibt es einen ganz, ganz tollen Link, der gibt dir sogar auch einen kleinen Nachlass. Wenn du magst, kann ich nur empfehlen. Ich wünsche dir weiterhin einen schönen Tag und wie ich immer so gerne sage, Happy Trades, bye bye.